Hey there guys, TC Made with TC Gaming back at you with another video. This is the continuation of the one I did yesterday where I was going to originally do two videos, or one video that was combined and then ended up breaking up the two videos. This is talking about ALS version 4 community and um, the Synty packs. So on my drive, you know that I have a project out there that has some assets in it that were given to me by the Synty group a long time ago that I've been using to do some of these retarget videos with. So if you go out to that project, there is a Synty folder that you can bring into your project, and it'll bring these additional assets in. If you don't have these, what you can do is what I'm going to do to this asset, you can do to any of the Synty meshes that are in your library. Normally with Synty, when you find when they have packs in there, most of their stuff is rigged to a common skeleton. So you'll have like 8 or 10 different character meshes, but they're all the same skeleton. With this process here, if you have this project, I'm going to upload this when I get done. What you'd be able to do is bring in your Synty project and then just repoint your mesh to my Synty Polygon Unreal guide that was given to me by Synty. And then all this other stuff will just work in your project anyway. And I'll show you an example at the end of this, but I'm going to upload this project when we're all done, so you will have that Synty folder in this project for your use there. And this is basically just one of their meshes without any of the artwork on it. So in the Synty folder that is going to be in your ALS community project, you'll have a couple things in here. We'll just go over them real quick. One is called the IK Rig Synty. One is the IK Retargeter for Synty, and then there's the SKM Synty Polygon Unreal character, the physics asset, and also the skeleton for that mesh. And there's also an animation blueprint for Synty. Now, we might have to rebuild this one. Let me just double check. I'm not sure. Probably still works. See if we find that resource that way. Yeah, okay, so this is actually still pretty intact. I migrated this in from another project, so I just want to make sure it still works. So what we're going to do is we're going to have an IK rig that's pointed to this mesh, and then the retargeter is going to take some other asset, some other IK rig, and pass information from that rig onto our Synty character. Now, in the case of what we're doing here, this is going to be our ALS version 4 character passing information onto this IK rig. And then in the animation blueprint for our character, what we're going to do is we're going to use this new node called retarget pose from mesh, and that's going to send data to the output pose of our character using the IK rig that we defined over here in the other side of the project. This IK rig retargeter here will send that animation data in. And then what we're going to do for bonus points is that there is a new process that I just found from a video out on YouTube where we're going to put some IK goals on these hands, and we're going to use some new node processes that they have in the system to force our character's hands to go into the position of the ALS character, so that it looks like we're holding the weapon, or it looks like we're holding the torch or whatever in the proper position. Now, for that process, I'm going to give credit to this young gentleman right here from Headsman Studios. I'm not sure what his name is, but his channel is called Headsman Studios. Currently has 80 subscribers. And I'm going to ask you guys a favor. I put a thing on here. I said, prepare to be blown up. I'm going to incorporate some of your methods into my existing process and point some traffic your way. Remember, when I wrote this, you were at 80 subs. So if you get a chance, please go out there, check this guy's channel out, subscribe to this guy and follow him, because I think he's going to be producing a lot of really cool stuff in the future. And this process, as far as adding these IK goals in there, I'm going to give him credit for this, because I think somebody else pointed me to this guy a while back, and I didn't quite understand what he was doing at the time, because 5.1 was pretty new. But definitely please go and subscribe there and blow this guy up, as I indicated that we would do. All right. So with that being said, I'm going to go back here into our project, and we'll get started. First of all, we want to make sure that our project works. We had our ALS version 4 guy in here. We ran him around, made sure everything was functional the way that it should be, and that our project looked good. And once we have all that verified or whatever, what we want to do is start this other process. So we're going to go into this plugins folder for Advanced Locomotion System. And under the ALSv4, you have your character assets in here, and your mannequin skeleton, and your mesh for this character. Way down in there. What we want to do is we want to take this asset from the characters folder up here for our mannequin UE4 for the rig. And I'm going to drag that rig down here into this meshes folder. And when I let it go, I'm going to say copy here. I'm going to go into the mesh folder, and I'm going to rename this IKUE4, and I'll call it Anim Man. And we're going to open this up. And over here under the preview skeletal mesh, we're going to pull this up and select Anim Man. And what that'll do is if the skeletons are compatible, all the naming conventions and all the rigs and the IK and everything will automatically land on here. To prove some of that, you should be able to click on this. And when you move this, it'll automatically pull his arms and stuff because the retargeters and the goals are all working properly. Okay. So just a little thing in there. If you hit reset, he should go back to his normal pose. Okay. So we have an IK UE4 Anim Man rig now. And we also have our other character rig up here in our Synty folder, which we have the same thing on here. We have an IK rig that's put on here with all the different names that are laid out the way that we had them in this project. And what we want to do is we want to go to this IK Retargeter for Synty, and we're going to pick as the source IK rig asset, we're going to pick the UE4 Anim Man. And then for our target IK rig, we're going to pick the IK rig for Synty. And to spread these apart a little bit, we'll just give them a little offset here. I usually use around 150 or so. And we can look to see if our animation data is translating. I usually just try and find something here like walk. And so ALS walk forward. All right, so we'll see, it looks pretty good. Now, you saw earlier here I had laid these over top of each other. So when they're walking, you can go back here and zero this out. And you can kind of verify if they're pretty close or if they look decent or whatever. In this project, they should be fairly decent, or about as decent as you can get them. I did notice the other night there's another thing in here too. I think we can go, let's see. There was a thing in here. Was it this one? This moves him forward. There's a scale. It also moves that guy forward. That's the source mesh offset rather. Target mesh scale. So you could play with this a little bit. I'll put him at 0. You can play with this a little bit, maybe make him like 1.1 or 1.025, 1.3, or sorry, 1.03, 1.04, 1.1, or not 1.1, 1.075 maybe. That's pretty close there. So that, you could play around with the scale. The closer the scales are on these things, the better things seem to work out. And what you could do right now, if you wanted to translate all this information data over to your ALS character, what you could do right now is you could go down here and you can pick all of these things, highlight everything and hit export selected animations, and you can put those into their own project folder. And I believe at that point you'd be able to go and rebuild the Synty character. You have to find his animation thing also, and rebuild that ALS version 4 guy using that data. So I'll show you what I mean there. In order to make that work, you have to get like all the different little things. So let me save this. Let me pull this over to the thing here. I want to save that. We're gonna go save all, save selected, make sure everything's saved. because there's a large percentage chance that this is going to crash when we do this thing. So first part is we'll grab all of these. So I'm going to shift select all that. And I'm going to say export selected animations. And if we want to, we can just go to our Synty folder here and right click and say new folder. And I'm just going to call this RTG. ALS, so retargeted ALS or whatever into this folder, and I'll say export. So give that a minute. Now that retargeted all the ALS data into this folder for that character. And like if I start playing these, that's my guy getting back up. You see his hand kind of sinks down. These are all out of the Synty folder. There's his walk forward, crouched, leaning. These are poses. All right, so some of this looks pretty decent, but I'm not 100% sure it would work. But that's how you would translate the information over if that's what you wanted to do. And then, as I was saying, the other piece of this is you could go and get your ALS character. You go find the ALS character. And in the mesh for the ALS character, he has an ALS and MVP. So if we went and found that, you could also right-click this and say retarget animation assets, duplicate and retarget animation blueprint. And then you pull up the IK rig for your retargeter for Synty. That'll pull your two characters up. And then you could say, I want to change directories, Synty, RTG ALS. Now, if you want to, you could also right click here and do another new folder and maybe call this RTG underscore ALS ABP, because this is just the NM blueprint. When you do either one of these processes, there's data in the animation blueprint that's also going to be in the other anims that you duplicated already. So if you wanted to keep them separated, you could do it by just having another subfolder. It doesn't really matter. And by retargeting that, you should end up with, again, this is the data from the NMBP, but now you actually have the NMBP for your character here. Now, the other thing is there's assets that you're not going to find in your source skeleton because our character doesn't have these bones, right? So I don't know. It'll probably run, but it might not run correctly, and we might have errors. So let's just go see for the fun of it. We go back to the ALS character BP. I did here in our mesh. For our skeletal mesh asset, we can go down here and pick our Synty Polygon Unreal guy, and we'll go to the viewport to show that that's the only character we have there. And the anim class is going to be our ABP for ALS, but there's two of them here because I duplicated them. So you have to pick the one that actually starts to pose the character, and you can see it's the second one that I chose there. So if I compile, go back out here to the demo, there is your character. And he does have his blueprint in there, but you see what happened with his hand IK? Looks kind of weird. Things are getting a little bit jacked up with his goals and stuff. Now you could go through and you could fix all this, I'm sure. Wouldn't be too hard to probably work through all the different issues. Some people might want to go this route and try to get all that to work, but see, he doesn't have sockets on here because we're on a different mesh and everything. Okay, so to fix that, what you would do is you would go to your Synty character. Actually, you go back to your mesh, go to your Synty Polygon guy, find out where he's at, and also where your ALS character is. Remember, we said he's down here. So the ALS character has a skeleton that's this mannequin. And in here you see that there are VB curves and VB data and stuff that's not on our other character. So we could duplicate all that. And we could also get in here and find all these sockets where weapons and other things are being spawned to. So let's go. Let me close that, make sure that is the right character. I'm pretty sure it is. Animan, right click, skeleton, find skeleton. Actually, it's up here. So there's an ALS mannequin skeleton. My apologies. And this guy should have a lot more sockets on it. Let's see if he does. He's got foot targets, head socket. There's the IK for his hand and his gun. Camera trace. Yeah, I thought he had weapon sockets on there. But anyway, you'd have to go through and you'd have to kind of match all that stuff up. And what we were working on was something that's a little bit of what I think is a better process because you don't have all these other issues, but we're going to force it with the hands to make it a little bit better. So what our process would be is using that animation blueprint that we had messed with earlier. What we could do is go to our ALS character blueprint again. I'm going to put the mesh back to the Animan and put the blueprint back to the ALS and MBP. I think that's the one for him. Actually, it looks like that one. Yeah, that's the ALS and MBP. We'll go back and verify we got the right thing on there. Yeah, it looks like we do. All right. So now that we have him properly turned back on, what we want to do is take this mesh, and underneath that, we're going to say add a skeletal mesh. And I'm going to call this Synty character. And now what we can do is we can take our skeletal mesh asset that we have over there from our Synty guy and put him in here. And his anim class now is going to be the ABP Synty that we used earlier. And what he's going to do is he's going to take the data that's being translated from the ALS character and apply it to our Synty guy. The problem with this method is that in the overall blueprints, there's a thing that says update on handheld object. So whenever you go and you pick something up like a pistol, what it does is it says go over here and grab that mesh. I don't know where the name of it is. It should say in here. Like for example, here's the M9, and it says attached to hand. Right. So let me move this out a little bit. Attached to hand, target is ALS character. Whoops. Well, we're let's not go into C++. Hold on. Disregard last. Let me show you inside of the blueprint. So attached to hand is actually going to run down to this on update handheld. And there should be a thing in here that says it's the one for the bow. On update handheld, object animation, on update held object. Yeah, there's a thing in here in the other, you know, it's in the other version. So it actually in this one, because it's the replicated version, this is actually in C++, so you'll have a little trouble there anyway. So I'm glad we're doing this way with the replicated version. In the old version, the blueprint code for where this goes is actually in the graph, and you can go in and specify that instead of attaching that to the ALS character, that you're going to actually attach it to the Synty character. So instead of attaching the mesh, you attach the Synty character. But that code is actually embedded in the other thing. So let me show you what the results of this are. And I'm just going to leave that other character turned on. So we have our two characters that are running around on top of each other. You can see that his animation data all works. But again, the problem will be that when I go to handle something like the rifle, it'll be pretty close. Let me see if I can get in that pose. I'm going to hit F8, which allows me to come out here and camera move and swing around. So you'll just see that his rifle is just a little bit out of his hands, not quite where you want it. See how it's up just a little high? Now you could play a game with trying to move the sockets around, or you could play a game with, trying to adjust positions and everything with that. But what we're going to do is we're going to use this IK system to actually force this hand to go to where this character's hand is. And we're also going to do the same thing with the other hand. So the left and the right hands, when we do this other process, it's going to force it to go to there. Now, as a result, that's going to cause a little bit of shift in some other parts of the body, and you'll just have to kind of figure out which one's best for you. But again, with the way that this is set up, you really don't have much choice. So let's go back to F8, and again, we'll do it. Let's just do a Q with the bow, and then I'll aim the bow and hit F8. Excuse me. And you can see, again, the hand's just slightly off on both sides. So we're just going to tweak this using IK. And to do that, oops, sorry. To do that, we're going to come out to the Synty character. We won't need these later. We can get rid of these. It was just an example of retargeting the animations if you want to try the other process. But if we come out here to the animation blueprint, this is where we're going to put some logic in here to get some values from the ALS character about where his hands are at, and then pass that information on to this character here. And to do that, we're going to use this new node that's called IK-rig. So if you right click out here and type in IK-rig, and you can pass it into here, through there. And then on the IK-rig, there's a rig definition for the asset. So we want to go and pick the rig that we're going to get the data from, right? So if we use the Animan or if we use the Synty one, what we're going to do is we're going to use, this one should be the one for our Synty character because we're going to use that to drive value curves in here. And so by picking the one for the Synty character and compiling that, what it should do is get the goals and stuff that we have defined there. So we're going to have to define a couple things and pull this back over. Okay, so once we put this rig in here and we define it for Synty, you see that, like, there's nothing in here. And the reason is because we want to go back into that IK rig and we're going to go and get these goals. So I click on the hand L goal. And if you drag this little window down, there's a thing in here where you can expose your position and rotation. And we'll also do the same thing with the hand R goal, expose position and rotation. And I think we want these to be absolute instead of additive. So we'll make those absolute and save that. And you'll see here now that we've exposed those that the IK rig now has positional data that it's receiving from that rig that we're going to be able to do something with that. And I think actually even just sitting right in here, if you were to manipulate these values, it might start to move his hand over there, like compile that. You can see it actually just shifted his body over a little bit. So if I put like something weird like 120, see how it like drags him over. So you can see that these are actually passing on data to that. And hand R position, same thing, we'll do like 120. That should move him back over this way. So what we're going to be able to do hopefully is to get the values and pass into this to make all this work. Compile that back and leave it the way that he was. And in order to get the data for this, what we want to do is go into our event graph. And we have, in our event graph, we have this thing called event blueprint, update animation, and get pawn owner. So we're going to utilize some things like that to cast to our ALS guy and find out, hey, where are your hands at? Are your hands in a position where we need to track and move our hands to yours? We're going to put a node in here called event blueprint, initialize animation. We'll bring that one in. We're going to take this try get pawn owner, and we're going to cast this to the ALS character BP. Plug that in there. And then as the ALS character, what you can do is now you can pull variables off of that character. So we're going to take this guy here and right click on that, and we'll just say promote to variable so that we have that thing as a reference later on for things that we want to read. And then the other thing we want to do too is we want to get the mesh object from there, because that's where we're going to get our information from, some of that as well. So, and I just keep compiling these as I go, usually just to make sure that they're saving properly. And then we'll also take our mesh here and say promote to variable. Oops, sorry. We'll right click on it. Sorry, and say promote to variable. And just drag that back over and turn that on. I'll move this back over a little bit. So just so far, On the event blueprint initialize animation, we're going to get the pawn owner of the ALS character BP. We're going to turn that into a variable that we can use for references later and get the mesh and set that into a variable also. We're going to compile that, just make sure it's not acting oddly. And then now we can go down here to the event blueprint update animation. We'll pull in this as ALS character BP. We'll get that. And if you right click on this, you can say convert that to a validated get. And then you can say if that character is valid. And if he is valid, then what we can do is come off of here and we're just going to get we're going to start a sequence. And we're going to run 3 different conditions there. One, we're going to check the left hand. We're basically going to check the left hand, the right hand, and both hands to see if they're in positions that we want to do something about. We can get a reference to our mesh over here. Say get mesh, and then we can get the socket location of a socket name, and in here our socket name is just going to be hand underscore L. And from that socket location, what we want to do is pull off the return value and say not equal under the operators. And you're basically saying if the socket location of the mesh is not at 0, 0, 0, which means, down in its original position. So if it hasn't moved, we don't care about it. But if it has moved, then we want to do something. So we're going to set the, if that's, should just be a Boolean here. I might have to put it out first and then pull that off there. And also in his video, the video for the guy I referenced earlier, he had a 1 in here. I'm not sure why he didn't quite explain that. Because it might have told me why it was in there. What's it say? 1. I thought there was a tooltip on it. I'm not sure why he had that in there, but we just want to make it match what he had. Okay, so we want to pull off into here and go into a branch. And if that value is not equal to 0, 0, 0, that's the first thing we're checking. Then what we want to do, if it's true that it's not 0, then what we want to do is we want to update a variable called left hand goal, which we have to create. So we're going to come down here and we're going to go to variables and add one. And we'll call this left hand goal. And this is going to be a vector value. And we're going to pull this out here and say set left hand goal. And we're going to set that left hand goal to whatever this return value was that wasn't 0, 0, 0. Just plug that in like that. And then I'll just put a double left click and click away. We'll give you this thing called a reroute node. So now when I highlight that, I can take this and just move the position of it so you can see this a little bit better. And I'll do the same thing here. I'll double left click and click away, and that gives me the reroute node that I can then pull this down. So you can kind of see logically where these are going. So let me step you through that one more time. We're going to go and get our character. If our character is valid, if there's something to actually get this information from, then what we're going to do is find out where the mesh's left hand is at. And if the value of the mesh's left hand is not equal to 0, that means it's somewhere else, then we're going to update our variable here called set left hand goal. Okay. I'll zoom that back out some. And I'm going to reorganize these in just a second because we're going to basically do the same thing for the other parameters here. Okay, then for the other one, we're going to do the same thing. And I'm going to move these over a little bit by just selecting them and dragging some stuff around here. Just so that it's easier to duplicate these. Set this back. Well, actually, I want to keep it kind of close to that, so that's where the branch runs. Anyway, I'm going to just highlight this whole thing. I'm going to hit Control Copy. Come down here a little bit and just hit Control V. That branch is going to come out of this other branch here. But before we do that, let me just pull this for a sec. on this one here, this is going to be hand underscore R. And we're going to create another variable down here. So this just duplicate, just hit another variable and just do right hand goal. And same thing, we'll drag this out here and say get right hand goal. I'm sorry, set right hand goal. Drag this out here and say set right hand goal. Plug that into here and plug this value into there. Delete that one because it's a duplicate. All right, so we should have something that looks like that. And the first one up here, the reason I didn't connect this yet is because what we're going to do is take this first one. I'm going to left click and drag up over top of here. And I'm going to right click on this and I'm going to say collapse to function. Actually, I'm just going to say collapse nodes. And I'm going to call this left hand goal. So left hand goals. I'm going to call this get left hand goal. And then I'll plug this one in over here. Do the same thing, highlight all this, right click it and say collapse to, or collapse nodes. And this will be called get right hand goal. Just to clean it up a little bit. And the way these things work, you know, when you collapse these, if you ever want to see what's in them, you just double left click them. It goes right into like a little sub area where this is in there. So it just makes it cleaner to read out here later. Don't have the spaghetti everywhere out here. You got it spaghetti's in the bowl instead of out here on the plate. All right, now we're going to do another one to check some other conditions here. Let me just take a look for a second. I'll get right back here. Okay, so we're going to make another condition out of here. So we'll come out of this then too. And we're going to do a branch here. And what this set of branches are going to do, right click on here and go down to node comment. And we're going to put left hand only. And we're going to see if the thing that the character is doing is only a left-hand thing or only a right-hand thing or a both-hand thing or whatever. So in this condition over here, we're going to get the ALS character BP and find out what the state is. You know, what weapon are we trying to equip on here? So one of the conditions, for example, is if the character is holding a torch. So we'll go as ALS character BP. We'll get that. We'll come out of here and we'll say get overlay state. And then we'll get the overlay state and we'll say I think you can say equal, and then it'll give you the enumerator. And then you can check from the enumerator which one that is. See if I can blow that up a little bit so you can see it. So like the torch, for example. Move these over a little bit. So in the case with that enumerator, if it is equal to the torch, if that's true, then we're going to do the left hand only. All right, so if this is false, we haven't said anything yet, but if the other condition, if we're false over here, that's if he's holding something like the gun. This will be for right hand only. So we're just going to copy this, and we'll come over here to another branch, and we'll paste this in. And we'll just change this one to the gun, or the pistol one-handed rather. Basically the same thing, but that's the pistol one-handed is obviously a one-handed pistol, and it uses only the right hand. So we'll put a comment on here, right hand only. This is just so it's easier to keep track of what we're doing with these branches. Like if the condition is true, where are we going? Compile these again, just make sure things are staying tidy. And we'll do one last one here, coming out of this false to another branch. And this branch we're going to name both hands. And the conditions for this, we can grab this again and go to our enums. So these will be anything that requires two hands, like for example the pistol two hand. And you can come out of here and get the enum again. Where's that? Enum equal enum. And we're going to bring these out into an OR clause. And so you have pistol two-handed uses that. The rifle uses it. We can add another pin here. Bring another enum out, equal enum. And what else do we have in there that's two-handed? There's the binoculars. And we also have the bow. Come down here, enum, equal enum for the bow. Again, we can add a pin for that. So if it's any of these things here, we want to use two hands. And then we're also going to use one for the mantling, because he mantles with both hands also. So for this one, we pull off of here, and we're going to get the locomotion state, movement state. And movement state, same thing. There should be an enum in there. If it's equal to mantling, then that is also going to be an OR condition where we use both hands. And then we would just plug that into here. And we're going to go back and start to wire these up a little bit. So again, just to recap here, I'm going to move these around a little bit just to make this easier. So let's move this down to here, this down to here, put it with that branch. We'll move this down, move these over here, put them with that branch, and then this branch over here has all these conditions. We'll make it a little bit more legible for those that are looking through the blueprint later. Not in love with the way that these look, but never have been. So, all right, so condition number one again was we're going to go out and get some parameters from the character. As the ALS character BP, we come out if he's valid. We find out about the left hand and IK goals, what the position of the hands are. We find out if he's wearing a torch. That means we should only use the left hand. If he's using the pistol one-handed, we should only use the right hand. And if he's using other things in here, we should be using two-hand. So you'll probably want to come back too on the left hand only. I think you got the barrel, and then on the two hands you got the box, stuff like that. So you can add those in if you want to. I may add them before I send this project out, but just saying that's the general idea of what we got going on here. Okay, so now that we have everything kind of wired up to what we want to do, we're gonna start to create things that update these values. So what we can do is up here in our anim graph, remember we had these hand L goal position, hand R position. So the left hand goal is what's going to drive that position. And the right hand goal is what's going to drive this position. So we'll just get those and plug them in. And then we're just basically going to write some code or blueprint code or whatever to update these values and send them to that character. So back here in the event graph, we can get started in here. All right, so in order to achieve this, we're going to create a function, and the function is going to be to update these values for the position alphas in here. And to do that, we're going to go over here to where the functions are and just click the plus button. And this will be called update hand alphas, like so. And you can click on that, and we're going to have some variables in here that we're going to update. So those variables would be over here as inputs. We're going to usually have to compile that, but I'm not sure. You have to so as the input 1, this parameter is going to be do left, and the other variable is going to be do right. And then we're going to come off of here, and we're going to put a branch in. Actually, let me see. I think we need a branch here. This will actually be not a branch, but this is going to be a sequence. And we're going to create 2 new variables that are floats for the alphas. Go back here in our anim graph, and you'll see that those are float values that have to be provided. So we're going to go and get, I'm going to be in here. We're going to go in here and get our left hand alpha as a float value. And our right hand alpha also as a float value. And compile that. Okay, now that we have those variables, we're doing pretty good here. We're going to go up here now. We're going to set the left hand alpha. And we're going to set that to a value that is a value between a lerp, which is a linear interpretation of the original left-hand value, and whatever this other plugin is going to be, with a value of 0.2. And we want to do that wired into here. So lerp between the current left-hand alpha and a select float with a value of 1 here plugged into that. So if the math of that just decides basically where to pick what and how to smoothly transition into it. So we're going to set the left-hand alpha to a lerp between the original left-hand alpha value and a float selection between 0 and 1. If it's 1, pick A. Plug that into here, which would be 1, so it's between the current left-hand alpha and 1 with an alpha of 0.2 for the do left. And then the do right's going to be the exact same basic thing there. So we should be able to do the same. I think I can just copy this. Well, I might as well not, because it's got a lot of variables that are not left hand, they're right hand. So it should be the same thing over here. Set right hand alpha. We come into set right hand alpha, and the value is going to be the lerp between the normal right hand value and alpha of 0.2, and then a select float pick A if it's 1, and return value into the node. I think should be pretty close. We're doing good. We're hanging in there. This is all going to be in a project file for you. And I'm going to just, once it is all up and running, I'll link it out on the drive. We'll make sure everything works first. And then it'll be out there for you to review. All right. Now that we have our function built, we should be able to go back to our event graph here. And if it's the left hand only, we should be able to pull out our update hand alphas. If it's the left hand only, then we're going to do the left. We pull out our update hand alphas again. If it is the right hand only, then we're going to do the right. And pull this out again. And if it's both hands, then we want to do the left and the right. And then if it's no hands, we want to put a condition in for that also, which should just be update hand alphas. I think coming off the false pin there. Hold on, let me check. Yeah, so coming off the false pin, if it's neither hand, then we don't do anything there. So I'll put a node comment on this and we'll just put no hands. All right, so this one here is both. Right only, left only, and then none. We'll compile this and go out here and see what's happening. Oh, our Synty guy's over there ragged on, so let me check what I got there. Hold on. Okay, back in our anim graph here, we also have to plug in these alpha positions for left hand alpha and also right hand alpha. Sure, we have two of those here. Full rotation. Okay, those are the rotation. I don't know if that's going to fix it. If it's not, I'll have to work on this a little bit further. Okay, so that's got our overlays a little bit better. Well, they're at least back to normal. And if I hit Q and go into the rifle, I gotta fix something here. Because if I'm not in the rifle, let's go back to default. That puts my guy back there. But if I go into anything that's just a one-handed, it ragdolls him out of the way. So I just got to figure out what that is real quick. But I'm going to get this corrected and I'll get it up on the drive as soon as it's done. The default pose seems to be working okay. I'm sure it's something simple and it probably has to do with something on the IK rig, so I'll go figure it out. Okay, the last little bit of what we have here, we'd gone through and we'd updated everything, and I was just going to run a test on it, and I realized that there were some issues, so I went back through the rig and changed a couple of names and settings. This project file is going to be available out on the drive, so I'm just going to show you here real quick that we're going to go to play standalone single player, and we'll hit the play button, and we're just going to go ahead and test a couple things here. So in this project, if you hit the V key, you can change what you're viewing, the angle that you're looking at. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here now and I'm going to hit Q, which pulls up this little menu, and I'll pull up the torch, and we can see that the torch is now properly held in our character's hands. I'm going to pull up the Q key again. I'll pull up like binoculars. We can see that those binoculars are now properly held in the character's hands. And you can adjust these a little bit if you have to. Pistol one-handed, or sorry, I grabbed the rifle. Pistol one-handed, and pistol two-handed, and the rifle. Hands tied, injured, feminine pose, masculine pose. All these will work now. And the bow, same thing. Bow works now. We did torch, binoculars, box and barrel. We didn't put in our queue, but they're actually pretty close anyway. But I would have to imagine that if this is, on the thing there that's left only, and so we could put the barrel on that, and then the same thing with the box. We could just put that under both. So I think if you just go back here to the ABP, we could pull this out. And you just duplicate this, control copy in V. Oh, I get there. I got there. I thought you could pull that out of there, but I guess if you copy this, control copy, B. Yeah, since it doesn't know that it's coming out of here, it didn't have the enumerator in it. But this is the one where we need both hands, right? So if we were carrying that box around, that box is a two-handed thing. And again, we just drop another pin on here to plug that in. And the one for where we only have only the left hand is over here. That's where he's carrying the torch. And we could also do an OR in there. And pull out of here, and we'll just slide this over. Copy that, Control V, plug it in here. This would be the barrel. These are the ones that end up on his left-hand side. And again, we just take one of these OR clauses, or booleans. So, OR, bool. And if it's that pose there, or this pose here, that condition is true. Compile and save, and go back out. And let's just try. Again, these were pretty close anyway, so Q, and we'll go down and get the box. But his hands are right at the bottom of the box now where they should have been. And the barrel should look good too. Yep, his hand's right on the barrel where it should be. Okay. So that's all working pretty good. And then, as I said, this is the replicated community version. So now what you have is also the benefit of going up here and saying 2 players or more. And I just usually play as a listen server whenever I do this. And when we start, we're going to get 2 instances. And I'll try to get down here on the one on the bottom. So you can see when I walk forward, you'll see my character. I'm in this panel down here on the lower right. But you see my character also up there on the left. And you can see that when as I move, you can see me on the other screen there. And things like ragdoll, they get a little glitchy if you're looking at them on both screens. But if you were watching this on just the other side, you shouldn't notice that. But again, if I go here, Q to the menu, and pull up like the rifle where my hand's tied, right? So it's all replicated, as you can see it on both screens. Okay. So I am done with what we're doing here. Again, my name's TC Made with TC Gaming. And one more time, I want to make sure, go over here to Headsman Studios and blow this guy up. I posted a link to his channel. If you go to my channel and you go to channels over here, I put a featured channel link on here for this guy, so you can just go right over here and subscribe to him and check out what he's working on. He's got some pretty cool stuff, and he deserves a lot of credit for adding this tutorial out there. So it makes it so much better that you can actually get the hands on there without having to go through a bunch of hoopla. So now, I actually was going to get off here, but it just occurred to me I forgot to tell you one more thing. What we're going to do now, I'm going to do this for you guys to preserve this. These are all things that you can have in here. So you're going to have a Synty folder in your project. And I am going to just real quick go show in Explorer. And I'll go up here to my ALSv4 community project, which is right here. I'm going to stop this project. Or actually exit the project, I should say. And I am going to delete that version. I'm going to right click on here and say add to ALSv4 community. And when this is all done, I'm actually going to load this up onto my server. I'll have a link for this project in the video description. And for this ALSv4 community, I'm actually going to call it ALSv4 community probably _ Synty, or ALSv4 _ Synty _ community. something like that. It'll be in my folder. You'll have a link to the folder and you'll see it in there. But what I'm going to show you is I want to save this in this state because I can't send it to you in the state I'm about to put it in by doing some other things to it. I can only send you the one asset file was given to me by Synty directly, so I can give you that one, but I can't give you the other stuff that I'm about to do here. So I'll just call this underscore Synty. Yep, caps locks on underscore Synty. So there's that project, and I'll put that up on my drive. Now going back into this project, what I want to show you is how you would use this yourself as a starter for whatever you're doing with the Synty project. You already have ALS version 4 in there, and you already have these Synty assets here. So what you would do is you would go to your launcher, and you would find where you're bringing your assets, however you do it. I'm going to go down here, and I'll just punch in Polygon to pull up a pack. And Polygon. So I'll just do it here with the city pack. I'll add that to my project. ALSv4 community. And I will add that there. You'll see it popping over here on the side. And what you should be able to do now is, because you have this Synty asset in here, the Synty Polygon and real character, you should be able to go into your mesh for your characters. And you should be able to take this guy here and say skeleton. Just right click on any of these on the skeletal meshes, okay? And if you just want to minimize your frustration here, there's a little filter button. You can go in here and just pick skeletal mesh, and it'll put these little filter buttons on here. So when I hit these, I can pull up things that I'm looking for specifically. You probably want to set these up for yourself. But if you go in here and you right click skeleton and assign skeleton, what you should be able to do is to come over and find my Synty Polygon. I keep saying my, it's really theirs, and they were very nice to give it to us. Synty Polygon Unreal. And when you do that, see here how the bones all match? You should just be able to say accept, save all, save selected, and now this Synty character businessman shirt thing will also be available as a character that you can use. So if I go down here to game mode, select a game mode, and go to my character, now remember character businessman shirt. So I go here, and I'm going to pull my Synty mesh up, and I would go in here and get the Synty businessman shirt asset, file save. You take this out of 2-player mode, and go back to play standalone. When you get this, it'll be in multiplayer mode. But anyway, since these meshes are all compatible with that skeleton, it's very simple now to just add that other character into your project. And one of the things we didn't check, I should have checked, is if you go up here, you can see how his hands are in the proper placement above the surface. He does his roll when he comes down off of this high jumps or whatever. And yep, he works just fine. Everything's good. All right, so again, go like, follow, and subscribe the Hedera Studios thing, or Headsman Studios. Sorry, Headsman Studios. Go like, follow, and subscribe there. Go to my drive, download this project, and if you have any questions, hit me up on the Discord. And thanks again for watching. Sorry for the length of this video. It's a lot of stuff going on. Hopefully you guys stay safe, and I'll catch you in a future video. Take care.